everyone, this is Professor Saunders here, and I'm going to be talking today a little bit about query letters. Okay, so the basic advice I would give about a query letter is that don't try to be creative. Just stick to the formula. Just follow the instructions. I think this is not an area you want your book to stand out, but you don't want anything about the way that you write the way that you format or write query letter to be unusual or weird. Agents are going to be reading tons of these, so they're going to want to be able to like skim it easily and kind of know how to read it. Don't get anyone's name wrong, including your own, or don't spell the agent's name wrong. That's just kind of like basic. That can also make you stick out in a bad way. Don't use any like crazy colored fonts. Just use, regular like Times New Roman or Arial, 12-point spacing. Don't include pictures. Just stick to the formula. And before you start sending it out, I would suggest like taking time to revise it. It's not going to be a crazy amount of words, but it is going to be something that needs to be like concise and written well. So make sure in the real world, if you were going to send your query letter out, I would just wait a little while and revise it before you start sending it to people. Okay, so first paragraph, you're going to want to include the title of your project. You're want to include the genres or subgenres. You're going to want to include the word count of your piece. I would suggest going from around 70,000 to 100,000. I would not suggest going over 100,000. Anything less than 50,000 is probably not going to be considered more of a novella. So yeah, I would suggest roughly going around that length, maybe 60 or 70 to 100. You're going to want to include an elevator pitch. This is kind of like a one sentence, very pithy kind of description of your book that's meant to like make people interested from hearing a little bit about it. You're going to want to also include comparative titles. So those are titles that are going to be similar to what you're writing or what you've done. This can go in this first paragraph. It can also go at the end. I think the key for this part to be successful is to do a little bit of research about writers who are writing similar genres. Amazon can be really great for this research. Just type in a book that you know is similar, and then you're going to see like titles if you scroll to the bottom of the page that are like, oh, here are similar suggestions. So yeah, I would suggest doing your research on the comp titles. Know that you don't have to kind of read them necessarily to be able to put them on your piece and understand they're similar. So you can kind of read different descriptions of different books, see different elevator pitches, all that, and kind of figure out what would be kind of a similar read in terms of its genre, audience, and the way that it tackles its topic to yours. You can include, but I wouldn't say that you have to include a sentence at the end of why you decided to send it to this agent in particular. So on their websites, they have their lists of like their preferences and desires for different like genres and what they're looking for in authors to represent. So saying like, hey, and this is why I'm sending this book to you, it suggests that you took the time to research this agent personally. And I think personalization can always help you be more successful. So here, I'm so glad that this book didn't sell this way because honestly, I hate the title and I don't like certain things about it. But okay, so anyways, so here is an example of a query letter that I wrote. There was a point in time where I was trying to sell my book as a YA book. It eventually sold as innovative fiction. But anyway, so here was a query letter where I hit up a YA agent. I know that it was not a bad query letter because I ended up having, I think, 4 manuscript requests. But they all said no. I think probably because the book really is not suited for YA part of it. And maybe it wasn't ready at that time. But anyway, so you can see, okay, so the first sentence is my elevator pitch. My story is a feminist retelling of the myth surrounding Gaia, mother of the earth, focusing on her life as a young girl and teenager. Yeah, again, really happy that this did not sell this way. And then I do say what genre it is. It's a YA novel in verse. So, and this is why certain like market knowledge is like important to have. So the reason why I tried to pitch the novel this way is because, or the book this way is because YA sells a lot of novel in verses. That's like the only genre in which like a novel of verse is like still like marketable or like would make money today. You'll see I give the manuscript title, Little Earth, and I give them the word count. You'll see that that word count is way less than the word count that I told you guys about earlier because it isn't like kind of poetry, kind of like fiction. You'll see I give some comparable titles, which I used Amazon and the internet to research. And then I say, I thought this manuscript might be a good fit for your list based on your interest in YA literature, particularly twists on mythologies and fantasy. So it kind of has all of the things that I mentioned there. Okay, now next what you're going to want to do is a short description of the book. This is going to be like around 200, 300 words. I've heard a lot of different advice about how to make this part successful. You can try to sell the main character, you know. You can kind of try to give them a reason to get excited about the project. That what I would definitely suggest. I've heard some agents talk about how they like it when the description gives them a reason to read the manuscript. Example, it doesn't reveal the ending or it suggests it ends on a twist. The basic advice is to write a concise description of the book that makes the agent excited to read it. And then, yeah, depending on what genre that you're writing in, you might want to pitch it a little bit differently. But yeah, it should be written to be successful to the person who's going to be reading it. So if you're trying to pitch a gothic mystery, the description should like, I guess, highlight the way it fits and doesn't fit. And so, yeah, another good thing is like you want to make sure that the agent understands how your book fits into other stories that have been written, how it fits into the market, right? But then also how it's also doing something that's different than what's been done before. So how is it similar, but also what new twists, what new fresh thing is it bringing to show you like, oh, this book needs to be published, you know? Don't go over the word count, so be concise and write it well. This is a writing, also remember that this is a writing sample for them to look at, and they will lose interest if the writing like isn't good. Okay, so here is my description of my book as that I wrote specifically to be a YA novel. You can pause it and read it over if you want to pause the lecture now. I would say that the things that I was trying to do here is I was trying to focus more on selling the main character. And I believe when I was doing that, that's when these query letters were having a little bit more success and the agents were interested in reading the full manuscript. Um, yeah, and then I was also thinking about describing the book in a way where it kind of fits with a YA audience. So that might be why there are some things that I find kind of cheesy, but I think that YA kind of has that more like kind of, I guess, commercial element to it. So things like the books ask the question, what is the difference between a flaw and a superpower? I mean, that is a element of the book, the element of the book that I tried to kind of like repackage so that it would be interesting to this audience, this agent in particular. So yeah, short, concise, written well. Try to sell the main character if you can, and make sure it's written so it's appealing to the audience that you're writing it for. Next thing that you're going to want to do is list your accomplishments as they relate to writing, editing, and school. I would say if you can like tell a story about yourself, about an anecdote of a time that you were really successful at something. I know that you guys might feel that you don't have a lot to say at this point of your career because it's early. So maybe just talk about like maybe some feedback that I gave you on your midterm, and at Loyola, just kind of trying to like build yourself up a little bit. And they can be really small details from life. I was always told I was a gifted writer or whatever. It's just stuff like that. Little stories, I think, can kind of fill a blank space if you feel like you don't have much to say. Here you can also demonstrate why you are a good writer to tell this story. So I think if it helps, you can help like sell yourself as an author in this project. If you have a personal connection or personal experience to the work, it helps kind of be like, yeah, and this is why I'm going to be just a fabulous, interesting person to tell this story. So here's my example. This was written a while ago. I teach writing at Loyola University, New Orleans. I graduated from my MFA. I talked about places the book had been published and places I've been published outside of the book. And then I mentioned that I had been a finalist and longlisted for two other book awards. Notably, I didn't mention that it was for the book that I was sending them was the one that had been the finalist. I probably didn't want them to know that because it would have seemed like a lot of it would have seemed like I was like, I guess, had sent it out before and it had been rejected. So yeah. take this time to highlight what you need to highlight. If you want to like position things in a certain way to make them sound more favorable to you, feel free to do that. At the end of the day, the purpose is to get them interested in this project. And, usually this letter is accompanied with a short sample of the book. And what happens is they read the letter, and if they're interested, they read the short sample. And then if they like that, they'll ask you for a full manuscript. This process takes forever. It can be exhausting. Um, yeah. Okay. So in the end, you're going to want to thank them. You're going to want to include your intended audience for this project. This can go at the beginning or the end. And then you want to give your contact info, your website if you have one, social media handles if you want them to see that, if they're kind of more professional. If they're more personal, which they probably will be at this time, then maybe not. I think, yeah, just make sure my general kind of final advice here would just be to make sure that you are kind of explaining how your book fits into the market. And I think some of this gets easier with the more market and genre knowledge that you have. Just do your best with what you can with the information that you have right now. And yeah, the basic thing is like, how does it fit into what's already there? But then also, how does it do something different to what's been done before? That helps kind of convince them that this needs to be published. There are going to be people who want to read it because it's familiar, but it's also going to be different enough to make it interesting. All right, guys. Well, hopefully this is helpful, and please reach out and let me know if you have any questions.